Finding affordable healthcare can be stressful, and some people think that insurance is their only option, which is why CHM was the first to establish a cost-sharing ministry. CHM is not insurance. It's a budget-friendly alternative with a focus on protecting families and supporting fellow Christians. Here's how it works. Each month, members send money to help pay for the eligible medical bills of their fellow members. As their own needs arise, they can submit eligible medical bills for reimbursement. Since members pay healthcare providers directly, they can get discounts, which makes costs more affordable for everyone. Plus, members have the freedom to choose their own healthcare providers. CHM is healthcare done differently, and it doesn't have to be stressful. You can have peace of mind knowing that you're spending less, helping fellow Christians, and protecting your family.
Hey, everybody. Welcome to another edition of the Tragedy and the Triumph podcast, where we believe that triumph over the difficulties of this life is only possible through Jesus Christ. And we also believe that if God has given you some type of triumph in your life, we just kind of have to talk about it. The word says very clearly that we receive comfort from the Lord, and it's our responsibility to comfort others with the same comfort that we've received. So I'm super happy today to be joined by two people that I absolutely love and admire. Chris and Kirsten Umphryes are with us today. Hey, guys.
Hi. Thanks for having us.
I'm so glad you guys are here. Now, just a brief history for everybody. I first met them on the campus of Mount Vernon Nazarene University. We had a meeting and I was just blown away. I was immediately drawn in to feeling like God had gifted Chris and Kirsten with some great skills and abilities. And in my very first meeting with you guys, I went home and I told my wife, Tammy, I was like, I love those young people. They're awesome. And so that started a friendship, or at least, hey guys, from my perspective, I think it's a friendship.
Oh yeah,
That's right.
And started this process where, in another role that I serve in, with providing some oversight for churches, they started to pastor a church, and God has just done some great things through them. But why they're joining us today is because, I guess you guys, the best way to say it is you've had a journey, haven't you? Yeah. So one of the things that immediately started maybe a connection was, first and foremost, Chris loves Star Wars, and we had an immediate connection. Not that I love Star Wars. Okay. Yeah, I really do. And then a connection on food. And I loved always hearing Chris and Kirsten talk about food, especially because Chris would be so animated about food. And I'm providing this segue because it does lead into some of the struggles in your life. So Chris, with that context in relation to food and larger than life for both of you, walk us through kind of your journey. When did tragedy strike your lives?
Yeah. So, I've always kind of been the person who I felt like I didn't have a whole great story to share. Right. And I know everyone talks about how, that's not true. Everyone has and that is very true. Everyone has a story, but I always felt like, it didn't feel like I was going to be that impactful. I found out that that's wrong through the years. Right. I know that it's very valuable to share whatever story you have. But our story did change. Yeah. And it's probably been almost about 2 years ago exactly. Kirsten and I were doing a wedding for some of our really good friends in church. And I was starting to feel a little sick and just GI symptoms that I'd had before. So I wasn't really that worried about it, but it just kept getting worse. And we were really full force into ministry. We were working on church stuff, and Easter was coming up right after that wedding, and just relationships and community and everything we could possibly do, we were doing, and we were staying just very busy and had a lot of stuff going on, and there wasn't a whole lot of time to slow down. And so we were doing that. And I said, even with our friends who we were marrying, we told them, I'm not feeling that good, but I'll make sure that I go and get that checked out kind of after Easter's over, because that's an important time in the church. And so I didn't want to I didn't want to break
Maybe a
into all
little
that
bit.
with this.
Maybe Easter's just a little important.
Right.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
so it was just one of those
And
things
Chris,
where
how many
I didn't
years
wanna,
ago was this? How many years ago was this?
this is 2 years ago about. So
2 years ago.
yeah,
Okay.
Pretty much exactly.
like in March of like 2 years ago.
Which
And
seems wild that it's been 2 years.
It
But
really it does.
yeah. And I started feeling sick and I said, I'm going to go see a doctor. And so after all this happened, after the wedding, after Easter was over, I did. And I kept getting a little bit sicker. I started feeling a little bit worse. But again, I wasn't too worried about it. I started losing quite a bit of weight. That's where it started kind of concerning me a little bit more because I'm not generally again, I like food. We've talked about this. Not something I generally don't lose weight, easily or quickly. And so that was kind of concerning. But again, I wasn't thinking too much about it. I wasn't too worried about it. And I finally did get into a doctor. It was kind of hard to get into a doctor, but I did. She, through this appointment, and it was just a family practitioner. She told me, hey, you have all the symptoms of colon cancer. I'm not going to tell you have cancer. I don't know, but you need to see a specialist. And so I was like, okay. And Kirsten and Wade were waiting in the car with me, for me. And I didn't really want to tell them that when I got out there because it wasn't the news I was hoping to hear. I was kind of hoping it was like, here's some medicine and you'll be better. And so, so I left it and I got a referral to a GI specialist and it was going to be 6 months until I got that appointment. And so that kind of concerned me because, you just find out that you might have cancer or something and then you have to wait 6 months to find out what's wrong with you.
Okay.
But I kept getting sicker and sicker. And it was probably a month later. I got sick enough, I ended up having to go to the ER just for various reasons. And when I got to the ER, basically I found out that I have Crohn's disease. And I will say, honestly, there was some relief in that. I was like, praise God, I don't have cancer, but I wasn't aware necessarily what Crohn's disease could be. I know people with Crohn's. I know a few people and they've talked about it. And I know kind of, at least I thought I knew kind of what it could do to you and what the things that you had to worry about. But
we've seen many people with Crohn's eventually live very normal lives. And so at that point, we were like, he's very sick, but it's Crohn's. There's got to be, it won't be long before normal life is happening again.
Yeah, there's an advertisement on TV all the time about something that you can take and it'll solve your problem. I mean, much less there might be 20 side effects that they're going to list at the end of that, right?
They are always really happy in those commercials,
Yeah,
I feel like we're targeted with those commercials more than ever now.
Even the way they say might cause depression or suicidal thoughts.
That's right. That's right.
I'm in for that.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. So, I got sicker. I ended up at the ER. They told me I got Crohn's. And, again, I was like, this is better than the alternative, I think. And so we left and I'm on medicine and they give me some steroids and that helped me feel better. And they got me on a medicine. They call them biologics. I don't really understand medicine, but all I know is it does something in your body and it kind of whatever. And it worked. And for a few months, 2, 3, 4 months, I don't remember the details exactly of how long, but I felt almost immediately better. Things started going up instead of down. I started being able to eat food again that I enjoyed. And I started just having more quality of life back. And that was great. And again, we had a lot of stuff going on. We were adding on to our home and like for someone, Kirsten's mom lives with us now. And so we were adding on for her to live with us. And I was helping our contractor build and like all this stuff. I didn't have a whole lot of time to not do that. And so I was excited to be able to get back into that. And I did.
Sure.
And a few months later, my body started fighting off that medicine. And I guess that's something that can happen. Your body says no, and then it starts to fight the medicine instead of the sickness and all this. And so pretty much immediately I got from feeling great and feeling better and nothing really being wrong, me having a essentially normal life again, to getting sicker and feeling all those symptoms and all those feelings that I felt a few months before. And so I went back to the doctor and he said, they did all the tests and it's just your medicine's not working. We'll have to find you a new one. And so they find me a new one and whatever. And it takes a long time, obviously, for all this to happen with insurance and all that stuff. So it wasn't like immediate, but through all this, I end up getting on another medicine and that medicine ends up not working and I keep getting sicker and sicker. And before I knew it, I ended up in the hospital again. And this was probably...
So it's February 2025.
So
it had been quite a while at that point, 8, 9, 10 months of just kind of like up and down, and then all of a sudden just down for a long period of time.
Yeah. And I had just crazy fevers and I was very weak and I had lost even more weight and I was having all the kinds of GI symptoms you can imagine and I couldn't eat anything. I pretty much drank protein shakes and ate broth and soup for like months. And
by that point, he had now lost 90 pounds.
90 pounds. And Chris, you couldn't sit, like it hurt.
Yeah.
Like
I was in a lot of like physical pain. I couldn't sit up on my bottom at all. I couldn't sit. I couldn't even really, unless I was like laying down. That's basically the point that it got to. And then one day, the reason I went to the hospital, I had been to the doctor. I'd asked him all these questions, like I have fevers, all this is happening to me, like, and they did all the tests they could to see if there was anything like specifically wrong other than the Crohn's that they could point out, and they couldn't find anything. And so I wasn't like too concerned. I mean, I was obviously concerned, but I wasn't like,
sure.
I thought they'd done what they can do, you know. And
I will say all these medicines, like you were joking about, they all have these side effects. And so the doctors, you know, high fevers and weakness and all of that is also side effect of medication. And so we were like, maybe we just have to wait longer for it to work, or maybe we just have to get through these side effects, you know? And so,
our body's got to adjust to those side effects maybe. And
yes, exactly.
Yeah. So you're February of 25 and, so you've been battling it 10 months, almost 11 months at that point, right? I'm thinking, Kirsten, what about you as a spouse? I mean, how are you feeling in the midst? I mean, here's somebody you love, and it's like day by day, I see them deteriorating.
Yes.
How are you processing all of that?
Yeah, I think in that point in time, kind of everything got real bad in February, where it was like, okay, this isn't good. Up until then, I think we still thought there was an end to it. We still thought, okay, they need to find a medication. They're working on it. For lack of better words, I still had hope that he was going to wake up one day and feel better. Right. And so it started feeling like, okay, shoot, like he's getting sicker and sicker. And to his like point, like everyone around him could see it more than he could. Like, you know, he knows how bad he feels, but we're all saying, Chris, this isn't good. Like you're deteriorating at a rapid pace that I don't think you realize. You know, we could see it physically in him. And so even just the conversations of we go to the ER, we're not people who that's been a part of our lives before, right? Sure. And so like, what do we do? And feeling the pressure of I am watching my husband, who's a healthy pastor and dad and husband, all of a sudden be a completely different person where he can't even get out of bed. Like truly, I don't know how to like stress it enough that like his life was laying in bed or on the couch on his side and getting up to go to the bathroom with help walking to the bathroom and then back to bed. Like our lives had fully changed. But I think even in those 11 months, we still just hadn't processed that like, this is bad. This isn't, you know, he's very sick and it's not getting better. And it started getting to that point, but like, I don't think we had processed it yet, you know?
Yeah.
The worst that like we had ever had, like the sickness that lasted the longest that we could ever imagine was like 2 weeks before this. You know what I mean? And so you always like your brain is like conditioned to think, at least mine was like, well, in 2 weeks, you know, in 3 weeks, it'll get better. Like it just goes away. It always does. And so it did. And when it didn't, that's when it like really starts to weigh down on you, like physically, but also mentally, you know?
Yeah.
Yeah. And listen, like Chris, you may have been a foodie before all of this started, but I want everybody to know it's not like you were a big guy.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So to lose 90 pounds was significant in your life, right?
Yeah, very much so.
You were healthy, but I mean, I remember seeing you and thinking, oh my word, what is going on here? And, you know, maybe, you know, it's always like somebody loses weight or gains weight. When you're living with them, you don't see it as much as you do when you're kind of away from them. And then it's like, man, 30 days or whatever. It's like, you know, this is significant what's going on.
There's people in our lives who knew Chris before Crohn's who do not recognize him when they see him now. Like truly don't even recognize him.
I could see that. So now it's also interesting because you guys both love Jesus. You're in ministry. You know, you're both pastors. You're striving to honor God with I know your heart, and you're striving to honor God with everything that you have. How's your spiritual state? Let's go to February of 25. How are you? Are you in, you know, now we're in the hospital. Are you in despair? Are you still trusting? You know, is one of you, man, I'm not sure how we're going to make it. And the other's like, no, it's going to be okay. Or what were those kind of conversations like between the two of you and, you know, in your prayers to God?
I don't know. I remember like feeling certain ways. I don't necessarily remember, you know, I don't know how well I can pinpoint them to certain times, but I think at this point, it had been a long time. but I had not been so sick for so long that I think I still had faith. I still definitely was believing God was with me. I knew God was with me. I knew all of that. And I had comfort, and I think I had peace in all of that. Like I wasn't so much broken down, which would most definitely come later. But like I think that, like she said, almost, I'm not sure that we had really even figured out what it looked like yet. Because while it had been a long time, there was significant ups in those times as well. And so, the most recent down was, however, I don't know how long, but it just kind of progressively got worse. And so for that, I mean, for me anyway, it was, there was a lot of hope. Like she said, there was a lot of hope in my life that this was going to end sometime,
I feel like in this February time, so Chris had gone septic, and that's the moment. So we're at home, right? And he calls me into the room he's in, and he's like, Kirsten, I can't get up. I think I'm going to pass out. And Chris has never passed out in his life. And so I'm like, do I call 911? What do I do? And, he's like, I think I got to go to the hospital. I think I have to go to the ER. And for Chris to say that to me was like, oh shoot, like this is bad. And so we call up another pastor in our town, because I had Wade at home, and I didn't want to take him. And we were like, it's probably just another like patient, and they'll pump him with steroids and he'll be home. And so we'll just have him take him to the ER, and I'll stay home, and we'll see what comes of that. So Chris goes to the ER with a pastor friend of ours, and he's texting me like, hey, they got me right in. Apparently they think I'm real bad because I didn't have to wait even for a second in the waiting room, which, if you've been to the ER, is not typical, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
And so they rush him in, and they do all these tests. And at first they think he's just low on blood, and then that's not it. And so then he texts me and he says, I'm septic. And I'm like, okay, I'm not a doctor. I don't know much about medical things, but that's not good. And so I call my mom, who at that time lived in Illinois, 9 hours away. And I said, Mom, Chris is septic. Like, that's bad, right? And my mom, she's a pastor as well, and she kind of knows how to respond in situations like that. And so she said, it can be, but I'm going to drive tonight, and I'll get to your house and watch Wade, and you go be at the hospital with him. And so we had a bunch of moving parts. Friends took us places. Friends watched Wade until she could get there, and I get to the hospital. And as I'm on my way, then Chris calls me and says they're actually transferring me to Columbus, to Riverside Hospital, because they don't have what I need here, and I need emergency surgery right now. And so I'm like, okay, this is serious. And I think those were the moments for me that like something clicked in me that's like, wait a minute, like this isn't how I saw this going at all. I thought that the Lord was going to heal Chris. We truly wholeheartedly believed that Chris would experience full healing from this disease that is not curable, right? And so in that moment, I felt that little waver of, is my hope wasted on yesterday? Like, does my hope belong to yesterday? Because this is not how I saw this going. And we get there, and Chris has this surgery, and he just feels terrible. Like, and the doctor's coming. We're on this floor. I don't know if you wanted to tell that part about on the floor.
Yeah. So I will say, like, this connects in my brain. I don't know if it makes sense when I'm saying it, but like many years, I was at a conference, like probably 10 years before this. And I went to this workshop on memorizing scripture, because I was like, that's not something I do now. That's not something I've done, and maybe I should. That's what it was about, right? It's like the whether you should not, what's it do for you, right? And I go to this conference, and in this conference, it's talking about the benefits of memorizing scripture and all this. And again, this is 10 years ago. And this guy says, we're going to go ahead and memorize scripture today. Just so that you guys can all leave here knowing it's not hard to do, and then you can, implement it in your own spiritual life and your spiritual practices. And so we memorized Job 2:10b, and it says, how can I accept good from God and not accept adversity? And right, this is Job talking. And I've always loved the story of Job. Like, it never really rang as true to me as it does now. But like, I remember learning that verse. I've never forgot that verse. And I always think like, that's true. Like, God gives and gives and gives. How can we just like be upset the one moment we don't get the thing we immediately? So I was holding on to that, right? Like, I thought, how can I accept good from God and not be able to go through some adversity, And so even up to this point, I think I still had that mindset of like, this is all okay. The Lord is with me. I know he is. But then, like Kirsten said, I get this surgery, and I'd never had surgery, right? I went from being like what I consider a relatively healthy, capable, 29 or 30-year-old guy that had never been to the ER to a guy who has spent like weeks in the hospital and is having emergency surgery out of nowhere. And they put me after surgery on this floor, and I still to this day, I'm not 100% certain whether it was because that's where they had a room or because that's where I needed to go, right? But they put me on this floor with I'm telling you, every person on this floor was sick, right? Like, could hardly get around. Some of them couldn't talk. So and I'm like, is this how sick I am? Is this how people, are they seeing me as the same? And I don't know if that's like okay to say or okay to think, but that's what it was
Sure.
like, am I this sick?
Is it really like this for me, right?
I mean, these people were on ventilators. It was bad. And I remember asking the doctor and saying, is this just the only room you had? Or is he this sick? And she said, ma'am, your husband is very sick. And I just remember that being because we're still having conversations. And mind you, he's in the hospital. He's had the surgery. He feels worse. His hope that he had before has now turned into him staring at the wall to not being able to have conversation with people when they visit, to just being, and Chris, right? That is so opposite of who he is, that it was in those few days after the surgery that I was it's over. I really thought that he would never, if he lived, that he would not be who he is, who God created him to be, right? And who he's been for 30 years of his life. But so he had this surgery.
Yeah, I had surgery, and they accomplished what they were hoping to accomplish for the most part, from what I understand. And but everything was still kind of dicey, I guess. And I was just they were just kind of watching me and observing everything and trying to figure out. They wanted me to get on a new medication because basically Crohn's doesn't go away. It just has to be managed by medication, but you have to find the medication that manages yours properly. And so I'm on my third one now. They finally get me a new medication. And well, luckily when you're in the hospital, all the insurance stuff isn't a problem. They just give you whatever and then it's good to go. So that was helpful, right? They give me this medicine and they say, hey, this medicine has a pretty good track record for people who have things similar to you. And so in 6 to 12 weeks, your body should really notice a difference. And I was like, okay, 6 to 12 weeks is quite a long time. But if that's what we're looking at, that's okay. But I was still bleeding a lot. I had internal bleeding, and I was losing quite a bit of blood. It turns out I didn't necessarily understand how how much that was, how important that was or whatever. But yeah, I was not really feeling better, but I was hopeful that, hey, they gave me this medicine. They're doing all these things. It's a bunch. It's a specialized team of people who know what they're doing with this specific thing, dealing with it, right? And so I was in the right place. I knew that I was getting what I needed to get. And I felt I'm going to get out of this pretty quick.
On the other side of,
I was going to say, well, it's been 10 months, 11 months. Okay, 6 weeks. If 6 weeks can get me where I need to be.
Yes.
Just putting that in perspective, right?
Yes.
What is 2 more months?
It's we can wait. Yeah. But on the other side of that, the GI doctor at the hospital who would come into our room each day to kind of update us, she would constantly say, your case is so severe and so rare and so complicated that everything we do is not a choice between a good and bad option, but it's a choice between risk and a different risk. And so she was always, it felt like every day there was a decision of, okay, are we going to choose this risk or are we going to choose this risk? And she just kept saying you just have to wait. And I remember asking her that day, so you're saying this medicine won't work for 6 weeks to 3 months and he's too sick to go home now and he's not going to get better until this medicine works. So are we going to be at this hospital for potentially 3 months? And she said, yes, that is what I'm saying. And then kind of
that got me.
Yeah.
Because I was okay, so I have to sit, I had already been there probably 8 days. And it was you mean I have to be in, and I was hospital beds seemed comfortable for a half an hour. And then you're already wasn't too comfortable, right? But and then you're you sit there and they have, at least where I was at, maybe they're not all like this. They blow things up to get your legs to move so you don't get bed sores and all this. And it's that's kind of cool. But after a day, 2 days, 5 days, it's I could get off this bed at any time. So to hear that I'm going to have to be in this bed hooked up to all this stuff for 6, 8, 12 weeks was not something I wanted to hear. But I was also like, again, if that's what it's got to be, if that's what it takes for me to get better, that's fine. I can do that.
And it's not comfortable for Kirsten either to stay there. I mean,
no, it's not. It's not ideal. And
right. Yes, exactly. Sleeping, I think that, we're on day 8 or 9 or who knows. But I also had a 3-year-old at home, right? Who I hadn't seen for 8 days, which was the longest that I had ever gone without, seeing him. And he had never stayed the night with someone that long at all. And so I think when she said that, really, it felt like something died inside of us. It was just like, this is like we started feeling bad for ourselves, and we started feeling like, God, what are you doing? Where are you in this? What are you doing? And then
we're at this is a part of the story that I don't know that we don't talk about it really all that much, just because it's kind of like, I don't know, whatever. But like and again, because of the nature of the stuff that I went through, it's kind of weird to talk about GI stuff, right? You know what I mean? It's kind of weird, but like
GI for me, Chris, means, I mean, that's an Army term, right? For my Army days. So
not
when
in
you
this
say
case.
GI, my mind doesn't go to GI.
Yeah.
To GI in the Army sense. So I think, man, that was a long time ago. I think it just means general issues.
Oh, that's funny. That's funny.
There you go.
Something like that.
If the Army issues it, then that's what it. So
right.
Yeah.
So I was in the bathroom a lot, like probably like 4+ hours a day. I was in the bathroom. And so one night I'm in the bathroom, and they tell you, like, at the hospital, I'm in the hospital, I'm in the bathroom, which is in my room. I'm alone in the room, which is like nice.
A blessing.
Sure.
And
sure.
And Kirsten's in there with me. And they always had me, I don't know if it's normal or not. I'm pretty sure it's just like the way they were working at the time. They always had, that little thing you pull, the emergency cord. It's like in the bathroom at hospitals. They were like, hey, when you're done, because they had to help me up and stuff. They're like, when you're done, pull that cord and we'll come in here. So whatever. So I'm always pulling that cord. And again, I do this every day. I'm in the bathroom 4 hours a day. They're used to me pulling the cord, and they're like, oh, the guy needs help off the toilet. So like the speed at which they came in there got slower because they knew, he just needs help. He can wait a second. And that's true. I was totally fine with, I'm not like saying I got bad care. That was fine. I completely understand that. But this one time, this is right after we hear all this one time, I got in the bathroom and thought, man, I don't really feel that good. I just feel, kind of worse. And
this is like at 3 a.m.
It's in the middle of the night.
Okay, so I had just like fallen asleep.
Yeah, she's sleeping, which again, she didn't sleep much, so I didn't wake her up. But I'm like in the bathroom, because I'm not supposed to walk myself to the bathroom even, right? But I got up and went to the bathroom. And I just, man, I don't really feel very good. And so I'm like, I'm going to pull the thing to see if I can get somebody in here. So I pull the thing, and I think it's going to be a minute, because it's always a minute. And they came right in, like, immediately. And I was like, oh, wow, that's what she's like, are you okay? I was like, I don't really feel very good. And she's like, do you want to go lay in the bed? I was like, well, I'm not sure that I could get to the bed. She said, do you need anything? And I said, I'm not really sure. And that's all I remember. And maybe it makes more sense for Kirsten to tell the story from here, because I really don't remember any of it.
Yeah. So again, middle of like night, early morning, I have drifted off to sleep, whatever that means in the hospital, right? And all of a sudden I wake up to every single nurse on the floor running into our room, and they're screaming, Chris, wake up, Chris, wake up. And I instantly, like, I get up and I look over at him, and he's laying on the bathroom floor, completely unconscious. And I remember jumping to the corner of the room. There were some chairs in the corner of the room, and I jumped in the corner of the room because I didn't want to be in the way. And they're all rushing. Machines are going off. Like, they're all like not like yelling to one another, like in urgency, right? Of like, we got to get him on the bed. He's not waking up. He's not waking up. What happened? And they get him on the bed. And I remember looking over at him, and it really feels like a moment that was like, I was watching it from outside of my body, right? I look at Chris, and he's white as a ghost, and he's unconscious, and he's not waking up. And I remember so clearly thinking, is this it? Like, everything that we've held together at this point, everything that we've carried, all the ways that we've trusted God, is this it? And I remember so clearly, like, truly, like it was yesterday, the Lord speaking to me and saying, just simple, I'm with you. And I remember a nurse told me to sit down, and I sat down, and Chris woke up eventually. And he was like, he looked terrorized, right? He had no idea what had happened. He woke up, they had put his bed so his head's all the way down and his feet are up because he had lost too much blood. At that point, we didn't know that he was in danger of that happening, right? Like, we didn't know that it had gotten so bad. And so he had lost so much blood. Things kind of calmed down eventually that night. Like, I asked questions to the nurses, like, okay, like, what happened though? And they're like, okay, if it happens again, push this code blue and we'll all come in again. And I'm like, wait, you're telling me it's going to happen again? Like, is he okay? And they're trying to explain to me, like, he just lost a lot of blood. We got to get him blood. And then we have to talk to the doctor and see what they want to do. And so really for us, we have no idea what's going on because, again, not medical people. And the nurses really are just trying to care in the best way they can without also knowing the complications of his case. And I remember that night, Chris had finally fallen asleep. And it was, I guess at this point it was early morning. And I remember having this moment with the Lord of like, God, I don't understand. And I don't know if I trust that you're with us. And like, I heard so clearly the Holy Spirit say, I'm with you, but I'm looking at my husband who has been in bed now for months and months, who can't do anything, who has served you with his whole life. And like, again, if you know Chris, you know that he loves Jesus and that he loves people and he has lived right with God, right? Yeah. And so I'm just having this moment of like, God, what are you doing? I don't know if I can have hope anymore. My sister, who wakes up really early for work, she had no idea what had happened because we didn't have, it was, again, in the middle of the night. We weren't calling people. We didn't really know what had happened. And she sends me a text with a song in it. And I can't remember, like, I wrote down some of the words for the song. It says, I'm not forsaken, never alone. The God of heaven calls me his own. Just go ask Daniel if our God will bring you out and he will testify. He shuts the lion's mouth. Go ask those Hebrew boys if he'll stick by your side and they will identify the fourth man in the fire. He's in the room. And that truly, like, that moment of listening to that song while Chris is sleeping and while I'm having all of these, like, questions and doubts to the God who has been so present with me for my whole life, right? That moment was like, became our testimony. He's the fourth man in the fire. And so then I think some really kind of cool things happened with you because Chris at this point, right, he didn't have that same moment. He was sleeping. So I have this moment with the Lord where he just reminds me who he is and who he is for us. Again, I think, like, looking back, I think of Mark chapter 4, where the disciples are in the boat, right? They're in this boat and the storm comes up and Jesus is in the boat with them, but he's sleeping. And the disciples say, Teacher, are you going to let us drown? And that's what I felt. I was like, Teacher, are you going to let me drown? Are you going to let this happen? And I got to have this moment with the Lord where he says, I'm with you. I'm the fourth man in the fire. I'm present here. Like, I have not left you. But Chris is sleeping. He doesn't have that same moment. So when he wakes up and we realize our journey in the hospital is still long and maybe even worse, like in a worse position now, he's even more discouraged.
I just kind of like shut down a little bit, I think, because again, I had a lot of hope up until this point. And I was like, now I'm going to have to like be here for who knows how long. And again, I didn't even talk about this part, but like, we have a son, right? And I love him. And it had been to the point where I already struggled to like play with him a ton, but like, I hadn't been around him for a long time. And I could kind of sense like all the things that me being in the hospital was like causing him, right? Like, he was just like worried about stuff, rightfully so. He's just a little guy who doesn't know how to process it. And I just missed him and all that. It's like, I'm going to be in here forever. And then them telling us, hey, you're probably going to be in here for a long time. And them telling me that, and then going through all this, which is solidifying, like, yeah, I am going to be in here a long time. Literally the next day, I don't know if it was the actual day or like the day after that, but like the next day or the one after, the doctor came in and was like, hey, your test results, your labs, all that is like looking really good. Your blood numbers are like super high again. I had a bunch of blood transfusions and they
had told us like his internal bleeding will not stop until this medicine starts working. And so for us, like, they're saying 3 months maybe that we're going to be here. The bleeding's not stopping. And then doctor comes in literally day later, 2 days later, whatever, and says, your numbers look good.
And I was like, okay, that's cool. Like, that's great. I'm glad to hear that. But
And at this point, though, you're like clinging to any sort of hope you can get, right?
For sure. So,
I mean,
but I also had shut down enough that I was like, that's good to hear. Great. You know what I mean? I didn't think too much into it. Really, I didn't think too much into it. And then, there's like a bunch of different people who come in through the day and like update you on what they know, right? And so all these different teams of people are coming in and they're saying, hey, everything's looking really good. And the GI specialist, who's like this like critical, like bad, very sick GI person, right? She's like, hey, it's actually looking really good. And I was like, well, what does that mean? She's like, I don't know, really. And the doctor comes in and says, you might be able to go home. And I said, what do you mean I might be able to go home? And he said, everything that we see is saying that you're stable and you're not bleeding anymore. You're not losing blood. And I said, I don't understand. And he was like, I don't know. And he's like, do you want to go home today? And I said, not really. I thought I was supposed to be here for, months more. And he's like, well, do you want to stay overnight and just make sure everything's good? And then we can talk about it in the morning. And I was like, I think that makes me feel a little better. Because again, I don't really believe that I don't believe it, but also I don't want to leave and then all of it happened to me again. Because I'm blessed that I was in the hospital when all of it happened, right? And so I was like, and so we do it. I go to sleep. They retest me, all this stuff. All these people come in again, say, hey, it looks good again. And the doctor says, do you want to go home? Everything's good. I feel comfortable sending you home. And I was like, whatever, right? And so I end up going home this day, right? And that's like a miracle. That's like God providing. That's like, there's no medically explained reason for why that happened as quick as it did. But it did. And again, I think that doesn't necessarily like land with me as it should have. I just it kind of like goes up because I had sort of started in this, like, I feel like I had gotten down pretty low. And I have never in my whole life struggled with depression ever. And I feel very blessed by that. So much to the point where like, I didn't even understand how to relate to someone who was trying to explain it to me. But I had started to fall into this depression that was like, this is something that I've never felt before, right? And I was getting down, but I got to go home, and that was exciting, right? And they had to help me to the car and everything. Like I had to walk through the hospital, but like I get to go home. We drive home in a snowstorm. My parents were actually there at the time, I think. Is that right?
Yeah. It was Wade's birthday.
Yeah, it was Wade's birthday. I got to go home on Wade's birthday.
I was going to ask you about that because that was like such a big deal to be able to go home for his birthday, right?
Yes.
But all that to be said, like I also knew like I still don't feel good and I am on this medicine that's supposed to be helping me, but like they have to do all these tests and really make sure like, is this medicine actually helping you for what it needs to? Is it really fixing the Crohn's problem or whatever? And then I also had to deal with the insurance part of it and start getting it myself once I left the hospital. And so all that happened and I get home and, it's Wade's birthday. He is happy we're home. And then we celebrate his birthday. We sing happy birthday to him. I'm laying on the couch for all this. And then I just go lay on the bed because I can't really do anything still. They said to me, like if you have any symptoms of anything, like if you have a fever, if you have pain, like extra pain or like blood, whatever, like if you have any of this, come back here because like we want to make sure that you're, taken care of or whatever. And so I was like, okay. And so I go upstairs to go to bed or lay down or whatever. And I'm just up there alone because they're all like they should be. Everyone's just like happy to be back and like they're talking and whatever. And so I'm upstairs and I get a fever. Okay. And it was 100. I can't remember. It was 100.4 or 5, which is where you're technically like, that's like officially a fever in the eyes of all these people. And I was like, I texted Kirsten, it's like, I have a fever. What do I do? Because in my brain, I'm like, I'm not going back there. I know I need to, but I do not. The last thing in the whole world that I want to do is go back to the ER. I do not want to go to the doctor. I don't want to be stuck there again. And she's like, I don't, maybe wait a couple minutes, whatever. I don't remember what we said, but she's like, we don't know what to do. And so I just prayed and I said, God, look, I know you're with me. I believe it. I believe that you heal people. I have seen it with my own eyes. Can you please do something for me right now? Is there anything you can do? I do not want to go back to the hospital. I will do anything. In fact, I remember out loud saying, because I'm alone in the room, I probably would have said out loud if I wasn't alone in the room. I said, if you help me here, I promise I will tell everybody about this. I promise. I will not let it go by. I will tell everyone I can possibly tell that you saved me right here. And I'm not joking. I have this thermometer next to me and I take my temperature and it's 100.3. And I was like, nice. That's cool. Thanks. I think you're listening to me. I would appreciate it if it was lower than that, though. Like, that doesn't seem, I'm not super convinced here. And so, I know how thermometers work. I don't just immediately take I sit there for 5 minutes and I pray. And I'm just like, God, please. And I'm just talking to God. And I'm like, just weeping and crying and say, God, please, just like, what can you please help me? Can you be with me? I want to be with my family. Like, I don't want to go back. I take my temperature again in 5 minutes and it's 100.2. And like, I pray. It's this whole cycle of like, I pray, I beg, I ask God, and he answers, and it like goes down and it goes down. And I'm like, I'm not taking medicine. Like, there's no reason this fever should be going away. Kirsten comes upstairs like to check on me later. And she's like, what's going on? I'm just like, I'm pretty sure God is healing me. I'm pretty sure God is taking away my fever. Can you please pray for me right now? And she does. And I remember saying like, God, can I see 99, please? Can it be under 100? And I take it again and it's 99. And I'm like, and I'm telling you, it goes all the way down to like 98 point whatever, right? And I'm like, God literally took away my fever in this moment. And, did he heal me? Did he take away Crohn's from me in that moment? No. But I have this moment in time where I have verifiable proof in my brain that God was with me in that moment, right? And he was listening to me and he was acting on my behalf. And I have held on to that since that night, because it's like, I know. And I do, and I'm telling people about it as much as I can. I've preached about it, right? I'm talking about it. Like, I'm trying to hold up my end of the bargain here, because like God has been with me. And I want people to know that even when you're in your trials and your tribulations and your struggles, God really is with you. And you might not get healed. I don't understand it. I say that all the time. You might not get healed, but God is with you, right? Yeah. And that moment was important to me, but it's, and it still is, but like, I still didn't feel good. You know what I mean? And it still wasn't gone. And I was thankful and I praised God for that moment, but I also still remember like, it didn't go away. I'm still sick. Right. And it's again, the beginning. It's the beginning of the worst right here, basically.
Chris, do you think that was maybe literally in your spiritual life, do you think maybe, and I want to be careful how I ask this, because listen, Billy Graham, the great Billy Graham, had a crisis of faith where he had a moment where he was like, I think, God, I may give this up unless I know that you're real, unless I know that you're with me, right? And the Lord visited him so strongly, so tangibly, that it changed the rest of his life. Right. Mm-hmm. And I'm just wondering, in your own life, do you think that was for you? And I'm not saying you were going to not have faith in God, but do you think that was like a make or break moment for you?
Yeah.
Like, God, I need some reminder, something that you're with me.
I think 100% that was like that moment Kirsten had in the hospital. I do. I think like, I know I will always have that moment, right? And I think like that's an important thing to have this thing that you can hold on to even in the times where it doesn't feel like God's with you. And I think Kirsten talked about hers, like where God spoke to her in that moment in the hospital. Like she said, I hadn't had that in the same way at this point. And so this was kind of that, like, listen, I'm here, right? And it was real. It is real, right? Like I know it is. And it's this thing I can tell people, like, look, you will experience it. I don't know how, I don't know when, I don't know in what way, but you will. And I have proof of that now in my own life.
Don't you sometimes want to, I know that I'm going to get to heaven and I'm not going to care about all my silly human questions. But don't you ever, like, sometimes I want to say, God, I know your timing's impeccable. It's perfect. Your word tells us, I believe it, God. But every now and then, could you just throw us a bone and before we're at the end of our rope, help, provide that sustenance? And I was talking to somebody one day about that, and they said something very beautiful to me. I'm never going to forget it. They said, and they had immense struggles. Their husband died of cancer. It was just awful. And she looked me in the eye and she said, people say, where was God? She said, they just weren't paying attention. Mm-hmm. She said he was in every little detail the entire way.
Yeah.
And I think I think that's why Elijah, God wasn't in all the big things. God was in that still small voice, right? Just that gentle whisper. And I know we all want God to intervene in the midst of our struggle and intervene in some great way. We all want it. And I don't know why he waits. I really do want to ask him that when I get to heaven. But I know that Romans 5 says that suffering produces character, character produces perseverance, long suffering, and perseverance produces hope.
Mm-hmm.
And I know that Romans says hope will not disappoint us. That's what I know.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
And could you see that start to play out in your life? I mean, and it's interesting because now God showed up. Like now you've got a hope.
Yeah.
That you're so compelled to tell people about, look, I know it was tangible and real.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I think that it was just like it was a very important moment in my life. And this, like I said, this is kind of the beginning of physically where it got the worst. But I had that to hold on. You know what I mean? I had this new fresh thing. It didn't make my life easier, like practically. I mean, outside of not going to the hospital, but like I knew that I had that sense of God's presence in my life. And right, this is probably about the same time that I got a text from a guy in our church, guy I love a lot. He's a good friend. We don't talk a whole lot outside of church. But like, so I wasn't expecting a text from this person. And he texted me and just said, I listened to this song this morning. This song talks about the valleys that you go through, how God uses them. And I'm devastated for your family in this valley that you're going through right now. I just want you to know that I'm praying for you. And I hope you can be reminded that God is good and he has a good plan. And it's the song Flowers. I don't know if you ever heard it. It's like a beautiful song. And I listened to it. And it's basically about how flowers grow in the valley. And it's like, I did not want to go through this. I don't wish upon anyone what I went through. I don't wish upon anyone health struggles. But because of what I have gone through, like because of that perseverance, because of the long suffering, like what you experience in the midst of it and coming out of it is that much more. Like I am forever a different person because of going through this. And like, even still, like I am a different person because of what I went through all of this stuff. And because of experiencing the presence of the Lord in my weakest and in my darkest, like I know that much more, like how and who God is. You know what I'm saying? Like, and I would not have had that. Like I've always loved Jesus, but like I would not have had this depth of understanding of how God cares for his people without this. And that was kind of a turning point in my life when that guy sent me that song. And I've never told him, maybe I should, I don't know, like where I was like, I am not going to let this be wasted. Even if for the rest of my life is laying on this couch.
Wow.
Even if the rest of my life is on the couch and in the bathroom, I'm not going to let this be wasted. Like I will allow this to change me. And I prayed to God many times, God, please teach me something in this. Please do not let this be a waste, because what a waste it would be to just not use it for anything. Right. And so I had gotten to the point I had gotten peace about, maybe this is me forever. Maybe this version of me is who I am. And I didn't feel like myself. I didn't feel like who I was. I felt like everything that was me had been taken from me. I felt like the things that I like to think about, just like humor, I just didn't feel like any of that existed in me still. But I wanted something to come out of what I had. Like I did not want it to be wasted. And that's where that kind of happened for me.
Chris and Kirsten, have y'all, and it's an oldie, but a goodie. Have you ever read the book Finding God by Larry Crabb? It's my favorite Christian book of all time. I've probably read that book. I don't know. I've read it a ton. And it talks about in the midst of struggle and adversity and God, where are you? And then wait, there God is. And it's just beautiful. In the foreword of that book, he dedicates that book to a friend and a mentor in his life that prayed. He struggled with cancer and he prayed and he was declared cancer free. But he prayed because he'd drawn so close to God in the midst of that struggle. And he prayed, he said that he would ask God for the cancer to come back if it would make him closer to him, closer to God again.
Wow.
And then in the foreword of the book, he says, and then he died of cancer.
Wow.
And I marvel at that, right? And you're saying, God, don't let this be wasted. Let me learn something in my life, right? There's a place. Yes, calamity, yes, struggle, yes, pain, yes, difficulty, but there is a place that through God's Spirit that we can get to where even that is small compared to just him being there. Does that make sense? Does that resonate with what happened to you guys?
Yes. I feel like that so clearly exemplifies our experience. We were just talking about before coming on here, just the reality that kind of to your point before of maybe God was there in every detail, but we didn't recognize it. There has been just moment after moment, time after time, where when we look back now that we see the Lord's hand in so many places, and in the moments that we needed it the most, in those breaking point moments, the Lord was there and he made his presence known in a way that was just right for each of us, not at the same time,
That's beautiful.
Not in the same way, but just perfect because he knows us and he loves us. I really exactly like you're saying, I am not thankful that Chris is sick. I'm just going to be honest, right? I am not thankful for the things that he has suffered and the ways that it has affected his life and in our ministry and our family. But the thing is, we truly understand the faithfulness of God in a different way, in a way that we've preached for a long time and that we didn't even know necessarily that we didn't understand. But to your point, I believe that we have seen Jesus so much clearer through this suffering, and it has changed the way that we respond to situations. It's changed the way we minister to people, and it's changed just the way that we even live our daily lives. And so I guess if you want to talk a little bit about the end of the story the end, right, of our journey real quick.
Yeah.
There is some resolution here.
Yeah. So you're in 25 and then that's Chris, you had that moment where God just visited you in the bedroom. Is that April? Is that March of 25? Is that?
Yeah, let's see. That would probably be more like February, March time.
March.
And then that guy texted me in May. I saw that in May.
Okay.
So that had been a little, that's after I was moping around for a little while.
And by the way, I know because I'm your friend. I mean, I don't know, but I watched how difficult this was. But on the other side, me included, Tammy included, you got people and then so many others that are praying for God to intervene. We love you. And quite honestly, we're having our own spiritual problems because we're going, God, where are you?
Yeah.
God, why won't you show up? God, why won't you do this for people that love you, right? And spiritual problems isn't articulated the right way. Questions are questions of God. And I think it's also important for everybody to understand, hey, God's got broad shoulders. Yeah. He can handle our questions. It's okay. And it's okay to verbalize them. It's okay to share your frustrations with him. Yeah. It's okay. If he loves us and we're in a relationship, it's okay to say, there's nothing but healthy respect, but I'm struggling with you right now. And I need you to show up. I need you to do this in my life. And I think out of that desperation comes some of the greatest spiritual healing in our lives too. Right?
Yeah.
All right. So now we're in May and you're starting to feel better or still struggling?
No, that medicine that I got on in the hospital that they put me on.
That was going to help with 6 weeks or 3 months. I also failed that. So with biologics, when your body turns against them or whatever, they call it failing the medicine. So this is my fourth one that I had failed. And so it worked for a little bit. It stopped working. And so basically, and once that happens, once your body starts to fight it, you can't take it again because your body will always see it as a bad thing. So it's not like all these options I'm basically seeing the options of medicines that are supposed to help me dwindle because there are a bunch of them, but I've already gone through quite a list of them, right? And there's not a bunch of them that necessarily are even that have any sort of trials in a case like mine at all. And so I fail this medicine, and so I'm feeling bad. I'm feeling worse than ever. Even less like myself than ever. I'm even weaker. I can't eat anything. I can't gain any weight. I'm losing muscle mass like crazy. I have no stamina. Surgery.
I had another surgery, similar to the emergency one I had, but just not an emergency. Yeah, another one. And they said, hopefully this helps you, have a couple more good days. And I was hopeful that it would, but it just kind of went downhill even more. And people would ask, how you doing? Because like you said, there's a lot of people who are praying for us. There's a lot of people inquiring about how I'm feeling. And I didn't know how to answer any of those questions because how do you feel? Well, I feel terrible and it's not getting better. But I also don't want to everyone who asks me, say that.
Yeah. It
And
was like a beautiful and hard privilege pastoring a people who were grieving over the same, like the thing that we're going through, right?
That's good.
Out of love. They love Chris and they love us, and they were worried and they were grieving. And so it was an interesting kind of time in our lives of learning how to grieve with people while going through it ourselves.
And we've never been like, we have always sort of been the people to not ask for help, even if we should have probably, right?
Sure.
And so we are always, our ministry like has always been like availability and consistency and like relationship with people. And so we have always been able to show up for people in their times of loss or grief or sickness or whatever, right? And that has been like the way that we have ministered for years and years. And so to number one, not be able to do that was very difficult. But then to be the person who
needed people,
who needed it, like to the point where if we didn't ask, I don't know what we would have done. Like we needed people. And then for people to show up for us, like in like crazy numbers, like people who we hadn't spoken to literally in over a decade would reach out and say, hey, I heard about you guys. I just want you to know I'm praying. And like people from other countries, like I'm talking hundreds, probably thousands of people in these times were praying for me to get better. I still hear to this day, I'll meet someone from some other place and say, you've been on our prayer list for a year. How are you doing? And it's like, I don't even know who you are, but I'm doing pretty good now. You know what I'm saying? Like, it's, and so like I feel like because of us going through that, we can now let people know, like, and to a new extent, like you need to lean on community. You need to lean on the kingdom of God because that is what it is. Like you cannot just be the one who's leaned on. You can also like lean on it, right? And like we learned that and we did that, and now it's like a whole new thing, right?
I think that's what kind of changed our, like, so we're in the spot, right? Chris's medicine fails, he's getting worse. We're like, okay, what happens now, right? And so now it's getting a long period of time, and thankfully, again, by the provision of God, we have this community who is long suffering with us, right? And we're getting checks in the mail from places we've never heard of. And we're getting people dropping by food from town. The village of Cardington, which is just a small village we live in, had a spaghetti dinner benefit for us where the whole community turned out. And so we are able to see God's faithfulness. So now, even though it is, what am I trying to say? We're not as in this time discouraged, right? Because we have this community that is holding us up, and we're seeing the provision of God. And we've both had these moments with the Lord where he's assured us of his presence, but we have this really real situation of Chris getting sicker, and we've got to figure something out. And so he gets referred by his GI doctor to this specialist in Columbus. We go in there, and in the first 2 minutes, like up until now, everyone's just told us we just got to find the right medication. You just got to kind of be patient and let the medicine do its work. Well, he's failing one after another. So we go to this IBD center, irritable bowel disease or inflammatory bowel disease place in Columbus. And in the first 2 minutes of the appointment, the doctor says to us, we don't see this kind of Crohn's very often at all. It's rare. You're very high risk, and it's very severe. You will not find a medication that works. You need to get an ileostomy, which just is a process where they bypass your colon and kind of bring it to the outside. And so that was a very, I think, sobering moment for us. Chris didn't want that to happen. That wasn't our hope in any way. But it was also this moment of like, okay, this is a solution that they're telling us will work. That if nothing else works, which we were at that point, then this will give Chris quality of life. He will still have Crohn's. He'll still have some things to deal with. There will be a journey to walk, but this will give him quality of life. And so I don't know if you want to speak into the rest of that.
Yeah, I mean, and I had through the next few months, I heard from every doctor that I saw, like, hey, this is probably what you're going to have to do. And I guess the praise is that I am stable enough that we're not worried about anything crazy happening at this point. It's more just how can we manage this disease you have? And so, I was not as worried about, the unknown at this point. It was kind of just like, how can we manage this thing? And so hearing from all my doctors, hey, you have to do this. I was like, you know what? Let's go ahead and do it. And we did it. And I had to wait, obviously, like however long to, organize it all and get it done. I didn't get any better. I just kept getting sicker up until that point. In fact, when they schedule it, it was like 3 months out, and I even called like in 6 weeks. I was like, hey, is there any way I can get in here sooner, because I am barely getting by. And they're like, it's just not. We just can't. I was like, okay, whatever. So I get this surgery, and you're supposed to be in the hospital 2 to 4 days, and I was in there 14 days. But even in those 14 days in the hospital, I I physically felt better, like every day. And I had more strength than I had in months, in 6, 8, 10 months in the hospital. And so I could see tangible evidence that I am getting better. Like what they told me would happen is happening. Like I am feeling better. My body is healing. I guess my colon had just got so sick that it needed like a break from everything. And that's where we're at right now. And, and I feel great. I feel as good as I could possibly feel now through all of this. Like I've got limitations, and a lot of things are still up in the air, and I still fight with insurance almost every day. And I still like don't know what's going to happen. But what I know is like, God has brought me to this point. God has gotten me to this point. God is faithful to be with you through whatever you're going through. And I didn't want to go through any of this, but I also am incredibly grateful for the person that I am because of going through all of this. And it's because of God. Like, glory to God for all of it. Because like outside of relationship with Jesus, what can you celebrate about 2-year-long sickness? Like not a whole lot. But like I have hope, and I have peace, and I have joy in my soul, regardless of the stuff that's going on in my life, and I feel really good. I'm so thankful for what he's done in my life. I'm so thankful for the people that he's brought into my life. I'm so thankful for the way that he's allowed us to lead out of all of this. Like we have like changed as leaders because of going through all of this. And like that song, Flowers Grow in the Valley. It's like, I would have rather not been in the valley, but praise God for the flowers because of it. You know what I'm saying? Because truly, it's like, we're like so much better for it all. Like so much better. And like I said, I do not wish it upon anyone. Please go through your whole life without going through it. But I also want someone to know who's sitting in it right now, someone who has been told and maybe is under the understanding that it won't ever go away. Like, it doesn't mean that you're alone. It doesn't mean that you're worthless. It doesn't mean that you can't like get through it. I'm like, God is with you, and like the tangible presence of God is all that you need. And it's easier said than believed and lived, but I'm telling you, like, I promise you, like that is the way to live. Like with the presence of God, there's no better place to be.
Good.
With Jesus, no season is wasted. And that has like been one of the biggest things that we've taken from this, is like the Lord uses everything, and he wants to reveal himself more and more to us, and he wants to be closer to us. And so he uses those situations to draw us near to him. And that has been the greatest thing truly that we've experienced.
Yeah, that's good. Is there a passage of scripture that God gave you that you've clung to in the midst of the last couple years?
Yeah. So I've shared a couple scriptures recently with different people who, for me, my experience in this whole journey is different than Chris's, right? I wasn't the sick one, but I was carrying a lot of things. I was carrying caring for my suffering husband. I was trying to pastor a church who still needed a pastor. I was trying to be a mom. My mom was retiring and moving in with us. And there was just so much that I felt I was crushing under the pressure that was around me. And the scripture, I had read it, but God truly put it right in my mind at the perfect time. It's Psalm 62, 5-6. And it says, "Yes, my soul find rest in God. My hope comes from him. Truly, he is my rock and my salvation." And that has held me in so many places. And then a scripture we've talked about multiple times recently is in Colossians, where it says, "He is before all things, and in him all things hold together." And it's such a beautiful picture that everything feels heavy to us in our humanness and our strength, but God holds us so perfectly. and it's easy for him to hold us. And so that's been very comforting to us through these.
It's good. It's good. Yeah. And I appreciated the advice that you shared, Chris, about, I hope you don't go through this, but remember, God is with you, and that you're not alone. And I think it's important too, and correct me if I'm wrong, I think it's important too that as other Christians, when God lays someone on your heart, when God lays a song on your heart, when God gives you a word as you're praying for someone else.
Yes.
Pick up the phone and call them and tell them, because you don't know what that's going to do for them on the other side. Is that fair?
Yes, that is one of the things that I've said in preaching and in conversations is two things. One, when you get that prompting, do it. That held us up in so many times. We would get a text at just the right time, a song at just the right time. Let the Lord use you in that way. And the other is, like Chris mentioned from the conference, memorize scripture, because it might feel like there's no point now. But in that moment, God brings it to you just at the perfect time to encourage you and to keep you going the next step and the next step.
Yeah, I think that's that good. My brain went blank. But I think that the thing with if you're prompted, do it. I have seen so many times where that time that really mattered to me, the thing that someone said to me, the thing that someone did for me, the thing that someone took time out of their day or whatever to just mention to me even, changed the course of how I thought maybe for the rest of my life. And it's it's just a tiny thing that they did. But had they not done that in the moment, had they not listened to the prompting of the Spirit in their life, I wouldn't have got that. And it's not to say that, I wouldn't be where I'm at, or, things wouldn't have unfolded, but totally it's because of that faithfulness to the Spirit in that moment, I am who I am. And it's so I know that anytime the Lord says, hey, if you're thinking about this person, let them know. If you're praying, if they come to your mind in prayer, if they let them know. And I do that as much as I possibly can, because like I said, those seemingly insignificant things people have done for me have changed my life forever. And it's God has something big for you, and you can't get it if you don't follow through, if you don't listen. You know what I'm saying? So it's just listen to the prompting of the Spirit for sure.
That's good. So you're not out of the woods yet. What'd you tell me the other day, Chris? You're at about what, 90, 95%?
Yeah, I feel 90, 95% of what I did, before all this happened. I can do almost everything I could do before. Yeah. I feel really great. There's always the looming, what is the permanent solution here? And I'm kind of just in the middle of waiting right now, which is fine. I'm very happy to be in the moment of waiting. And in fact, if I can make that last as long as possible, I will.
You would love it.
But what's going to happen? I don't know. But I know that, God's been with me up to this point, and I know he's going to be with me through it all, whatever that looks like. And so I'm not going to pretend it's not a struggle for me, every day in the back of my brain to fight with this stuff, the uncertainty of the future and the desire to not go through anything. I have fear of being in the same places I was in before. And it has messed with me mentally. Like I said, stuff that I never had never would dream of.
Sure.
But I also do have the sure, 100% confidence in the fact that God is with me. He will continue to be with me forever, always, through whatever we go through. So, and I'm just thankful. I'm thankful for that. So yeah, I'm, not out of the woods, but I feel so good, and I'm blessed to be able to be where we're at, and to just spend time with my family again and walk around outside in the sunshine this year, so.
Yeah. And didn't you tell me one of the byproducts of where you are right now is that you can pretty much eat anything?
I can eat all day, every day, and I'm stuck right here at this weight. So, which is less than I have been since high school. So, it's not all bad, I guess.
I mean, that's especially for a guy that likes food, that's not a bad gig for you for this brief moment, right? Yeah. I mean, it sure isn't worth all the other, but at least it's a positive in the moment, right?
Because I had come to peace with the fact maybe I won't get to enjoy eating ever again, So the fact that I do get to is what a blessing that is. It is just an unexpected cherry on top.
Yeah, I'm amazed at both of you. Seriously, I love you both so much.
Thank you. Yeah, we love you.
I have a lot of respect for you. I think more people need to hear your story. I think you're both gifted communicators. In fact, I want to just say, anybody watching this, man, you you could do yourself a favor and have Chris and Kirsten come share at a gathering that you have for something. They'll do a fantastic job. They're great communicators. And I know it's because your faith in God is unwavered. And I just want you to say, like, I'm on the outside of this looking in, but I have nothing but respect for how the Lord has worked in your life and how your faith, even today, is stronger than it's ever been. Mm-hmm. And it matters. I'm learning something from the two of you, and I want you to hear me say that, like God's teaching me because you've been faithful. So thanks. That. Okay, and thanks for joining us today. This has been awesome, and I know it's going to impact. I know it's going to impact people's lives. Okay,
thank you so much.
Thanks so much. All right.
Life is hard. Bad things happen to good people, and yet some people learn that their struggles, failures, and flaws can be stepping stones instead of obstacles. They find a way not just to survive, but to thrive despite facing hardship. Would you like to be a person like that? Someone who manages to find victory, joy, and peace, even when the storms of life come. A simple step you can take right now is to order Wendell Brown's new book, Living in Triumph. In this compelling new release, Wendell shares with you proven secrets not just to getting by, not just to endure hardship, but actually to thrive, grow, and discover more than you ever thought possible. To order your copy, go to www.tragedy-into-triumph.com/books. That's www.tragedy-into-triumph.com/books. This is a book that can change your life. Order today.